Really excited to be sharing with you Owen Fitzpatrick's story today. Owen gives an overview about his journey to now. He gives some honest account about some of the challenges he faced with his younger one, depression and mental health. We also speak about becoming the best possible version of yourself, the importance of education, NLP, and also Owen's famous TEDx talk. This is an action-packed interview and I think you're thoroughly going to enjoy it. See you soon. Hey, it's Mark Kelly here from What I Know Now. What I Know Now is a leadership and personal development podcast. If you haven't listened to the show before, What I Know Now, we ask people from all walks of life their story to now. We ask about their highs, their lows, but ultimately, if they had a coffee with their 18-year-old self, what advice would they offer? Today's guest is Owen Fitzpatrick. Owen is a Globetrotting Psychologist, best-selling author, speaker, and he actually co-authored with Dr. Richard Bandler, who's also the co-creator of NLP. Owen, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
Owen, can you give me a bit of an overview about your journey to now?
Sure, no problem. So I started, Mark, back in my teenage years. I began sort of reading a lot of books on personal development stuff. The reason I did, when I was about 14 years old, I was very depressed. So I was suicidal in my teenage years, and I would come home from school pretty much every day and be just like trying to find the will to kill myself, basically. So I was in a very dark place. And so I started reading different things about trying to improve your life, trying to be more confident, trying to be happier, trying to be cooler, you know. But I was really struggling with it. So I had a very sort of dark mentality to it. And that's where I suppose a lot of my motivation still to this day comes from. So I started out through there. A few events happened during my teenage years that made a switch for me and gave me a little bit of the ability to be able to get through it. And then from there on in, I started studying more about psychology. I found, hypnotherapy, I found NLP, and I began to learn to be able to change the way in which I was thinking. And so when I was still a teenager, still in school, when I'd overcome that, I started studying hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. And then I did this sort of course, and I started studying it part-time. And I eventually qualified then, and I was, I think, 17 when I qualified. And then I started working with clients. Now, initially, the first few clients I worked with were on smoking or weight loss, certain basic, habitual change pattern stuff. But then, I started working with more serious issues and stuff, but it was a very early age. I started studying NLP at the same time, and I had started going to university at the same time. So I was studying sort of human development, which is mostly psychology and stuff, and a few other subjects in university, while part-time doing therapy, while also studying NLP. And so that became sort of the latter half of my teens. Then I got to know Dr. Richard Bandler, the co-creator of NLP, in my early 20s. I got qualification in NLP called the Licensed Master Trainer, which is basically the highest accolade you can get, and it's like an honorary title that you get for contributing to the field. Then I got to know Richard more. Then I started writing books with him. Then I got invited to international places to teach. I'd set up the Institute at this stage with Brian Colbert. I got international requests to train, wrote more books, taught more internationally, got my TV show in RTE on managing time and stuff. Then got hired in a lot of businesses, been working in the corporate arena, did a few really cool big conferences and stuff around the world.
You are very young, 16 or 17, to be dealing with other people's issues like that and being a sponge and listening to people. And so many other people at that age are, hitting the clubs. They're doing something completely different. You mentioned obviously your low points when you were younger. Do you think that enabled you to just stay on that straight and narrow about where you wanted to?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if it allowed me to stay on the straight and narrow. I do think it motivated me powerfully to want to be able to overcome or beat this darkness and to help other people as well. I mean, I think it was a huge motivator. I mean, the reason I kind of gloss over it is because I'm quite cynical. And even though I've been in the field for 25 years now at this stage, I'm quite cynical about a lot of this, think positive and everything's fine or whatever. And for me, I think, the times where you're severely depressed, very difficult for people who haven't experienced it to understand it.
Yeah.
But for me, it was so painful and so hard. And back then there was no real, you can't really talk about it. Like I hid it from my parents and I hid it from people and I was good at hiding it, but it was killing me, it was really difficult to deal with. And I kind of feel, because I'm cynical, I feel it hard talking about, not hard talking about, I don't mind talking about it, but it's hard. I almost feel kind of like embarrassed because it feels like I'm doing one of those hero's journey where, you know, oh my God, I was so depressed, but then I learned the 6 strategies of success and I became super successful and everything was great. And I don't mean it like that. It wasn't that easy. But, you know, for me, I was blessed with the people I met. I was blessed with the situation I was in. The thing that made the difference, which sounds a bit crazy, I remember I was at the lowest ebb and something that happened at school and I was on my way home and I almost did something stupid. And when I got back, I was trying to will myself to just get the freedom. And you don't think about anyone else but but yourself at that moment. And what I did at that moment was I just like took a break from the desire to end it and stuck on the telly. And Rocky was on, and I'd never seen Rocky. And
great movie.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh, great movie.
And I was watching it, and as I was watching, I'd never seen it before, but I literally was just transfixed. I was just staring at the TV, and nothing else existed. And I associated 100% with this fucking bum, this loser, this pathetic excuse for all of the things that I felt about myself, and I connected. And there was one sentence in it that hit me so hard, and that changed the way in which I was thinking. He was talking to Adrian about this big fight with Apollo, and he said, I don't even care if I paraphrase him, but I don't care if I win or lose. He goes, I just want to go the distance. No one's ever gone the distance with Creed before. And in that moment, that was the metaphor I used. From that moment on, I was thinking to myself, I don't have to turn around and be happy. I don't have to turn around and be sociable and have everyone like me. I don't have to be popular. I don't have to, all the things that I crave for. I don't have to do any of it. I just have to go the distance. And I saw that became the metaphor that I used. And from that moment, that kind of was like a switch, a flip for me. Yeah. And from that moment on, I just worked really hard, learned, studied, tried to challenge my own thoughts and stuff. And because I didn't know about reaching out, and I just worked on myself. And it was really tough, but I got through it. And then I started learning the skills from NLP, the skills from psychology. I started applying that. That really helped. And then I went from strength to strength. And then I had dark times at different intervals through my life since then. But each time, I suppose when I communicate, when I talk to people who are severely depressed, I try to get this message. It's like depression is a lie. It's like a darkness that convinces you that everything's fucked when it's not. And what you have to do is you have to remember, no matter how, because you don't think negatively, you believe negatively. So you don't think that things are fucked. You're certain that they are when you're in that state. It's your whole neurology is wired to convince you. So you have to know, like a meta know, that this is a lie. No matter what it's saying to me now, this is a lie. And you have to know that and sort of let yourself hear it, but detach yourself from it and let yourself go through that to that point. And that's really what helped me massively. It's almost like I say, I bet hope that it was going to end, that, I was going to go through this and feel differently. And then it's about being patient, And so that really made the biggest shift. And when you go through that sort of pain, like I didn't have, like, I'm not from a broken family. I'm very lucky with my parents. I'm very lucky from my family surroundings. I didn't grow up, dirt poor living on the street. So I've many blessings, very lucky things. But what I did grow up with was part of my mind that, was very dark. I did experience massive emotional pain. I did struggle to make good relationships and friendships in school. I did have a difficulty in communicating effectively with people in school. And so all of that pain, all of that difficult torture at some points, that became a drive for me.
Do you think that
drove me to do everything I've done.
Do you think that gave you a lot of empathy?
I think I've always had empathy. I think part of the reason, I think it's the other way around. I think because I had too much empathy, I've always, like as a kid, even stories with parents would tell me I'd be over empathizing with people. Right. Like it's been a continuous pattern in my life. So I feel too strongly and I'm able to put myself in other people's shoes probably too much sometimes. Yeah. And so when I do that, the problem is I'm also super sensitive. Right. So if, for example, someone pretended to be nice in school, but deep down they were saying something behind my back, I'd read them like a book. Yeah. And I sometimes wish I couldn't. Now that turns into be a great skill in certain contexts. Yeah. But it's not an easy life sometimes. And the bottom line is you will have people that, will be nice to your face, but screw you behind your back. And so I read that and I found that I was right. And I was always really good at reading people. And I was very sensitive and I was very empathetic. So that was like a cocktail of disaster when you're a fucking teenager. Do you know what I mean? That's
pretty challenging because you're kind of profiling people and you're kind of you're sussing them out. One thing we didn't speak about before we were giving the introduction to yourself was your TED Talk. It's a very special TED Talk, and for those that haven't seen it, you should watch it because it's unique. It's very, very good. I found it definitely inspiring. It's kind of brutal as well.
Yeah, the TEDx talk, honestly, is probably one of the things I'm most proud of. I speak for a living. I speak all the time. And it's kind of easy for me to stand there and talk for 10 minutes or whatever the case may be and do a decent enough job. I can do that, no problem. But I didn't want to do that. For a TEDx talk, I kind of felt, let's push the boundary. Let's push the boat out. And so I said, what if I do something fucking ridiculous, something so insane that if you describe it to people, they cringe and they go, oh God. And if I can do something like that and pull it off so it's not cringe when you actually see it, then I'm happy, you know? So I literally back to the wall, took a huge risk, but I basically wrote a 10-minute rhyme that includes a battle, an inner sort of rap battle between two sides of the mind, two voices and stuff. It was the ballsiest thing I've done because there's so many ways it can, I mean, you miss one line, you forget one line, the whole rhythm goes out of whack.
100%.
And rapping in front of a person when you're not a fucking rapper, you're a 37-year-old, as I was, psychologist, or 38-year-old psychologist.
Because you're doing it to music.
Yeah, to a beat.
Yeah, doing this to a beat. So if you do miss by one rhyme, it was pretty ballsy because literally you miss it, then it kind of goes pear-shaped.
Yeah.
What I liked about it, you had this conviction about it, right? So you went 100% in. You couldn't do it actually and not go 100% in, right?
Yeah.
So you went 100% into it.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know, I've recently got the good news last week that I found out I'm going to do a TEDx talk as well. It said at least the bar is set high by yourself. So
well, it's not. Here's the thing. It's not even a bar. Like what I did was very different to anything else that went on that night, you know. And there were some great speakers and great speeches. You'll have other great speakers, and you have to do your own thing. So it's not about what's better and stuff, what's worse. Like each to their own. Like I was saying, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I've got like, I don't know. There's about 120,000 views or so. There's about 60 dislikes or so, and there's like 960 likes. So there's still 60 people that looked at the video and go, no. Now maybe they didn't watch it, maybe they did watch it, maybe they don't like my face. No matter what you do, you're going to have people that like it and people that don't, and you have to just be happy with it yourself.
Doesn't it say so much for you though, that people actually didn't know or didn't dislike? Because so many people just don't do anything. They don't do yes or no because they're just like, whatever.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
like you got opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you get feedback. Feedback is great, but the reality is that you know, everything you do is going to have some people that love it and some people that don't. And if you always hold back and you don't deliver because you're worried about what people think, then you know you're never going to be able to create. And I think it's imperative to really push yourself out there, and fair play to you for going for it. But again, you know, all you have to do is deliver the best talk you can and be proud of it and tell your story and share it the way you want to. Play by your terms, because the impact that you'll have on the people, what you want is you want the people that are in there and the people that watch the video when it comes out, you want the people that are watching it to be impacted. What makes me really happy is I've gotten a lot of messages, both privately and on the YouTube and stuff, about people that said it made a difference to them. And it's nice to be told I'm a good speaker, but I don't really need that feedback because I've done enough. It's nice to be told they enjoyed the talk or they enjoyed the rhyme or, well, it was good rhyme. That's all good for my ego. But what makes me happiest is when someone says, I was really struggling and that reached out to me and that touched me in a way that, you know, nothing else had.
You know what? I really relate to that because that's what I've got from the podcast. It's like I get a message now and then from people to say, this person said this is how I was feeling. I just want to know if this made a difference.
Brilliant.
Tell me a little bit about NLP and what made you like it so much and resonate with it that you wanted to share and write books about it.
So for me, when I came across NLP, it was in a book that I read, and it was basically about the science of personal achievement and stuff. And at the time, I'd been through the worst part, and I was just trying to learn everything I could to try to be happier, to try to reinvent myself. That was the big thing. And so it talked about reprogramming yourself, reprogramming your thoughts, reprogramming your behaviors. And all that sort of was attractive to me. So I began to become interested in it. I attended a talk that Richard Bandler gave, and literally my face was hurting because I laughed so much, and I never enjoyed it as much as I did. I thought it was absolutely incredible to watch him, you know, tell the stories he told and the experiences he had. But after he'd finished, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to be up on that stage and be delivering that. And so I started studying it. And NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So neuro refers to the brain and the mind. Linguistic is down to the language or communication. Programming is our ability to reprogram or to be able to, it's a metaphor for, like our brain is a computer. And so the way it works basically is it helps you to communicate more effectively with yourself and more effectively with other people. So you can change the way in which you think in terms of the images you make, the way you talk to yourself, the way in which you feel. You can do techniques on yourself. You can learn how other people do what they do. But you can also learn to communicate more effectively with others. You can be more influential. You can make other people feel better. You can help other people overcome their problems. And it's one of the most useful and practical and pragmatic technologies I found. And so it wasn't just NLP. I was studying other forms of psychology. But because I got to know Richard and started working a lot with Richard Bandler, NLP was definitely played a huge part in the work that I did. And I set up the Irish Institute with Brian in 2001. We started teaching what we call practitioner courses and master practitioner courses. We got to co-train with Richard for a very special event in 2003. So NLP itself has been very good to me. And that's, certainly in the early part of my career, I was just doing NLP more than anything else and stuff. And I still feel it was incredibly useful when I was doing one-to-one with people as well, because I would have worked with thousands of people as a therapist. And so a lot of that would have been using a massive amount of NLP. But like everything else, you have good people that use it that are competent and skilled, and then you have idiots that, say they do NLP, but, they're not doing it as effectively as they could. You got people who think that they're the greatest thing in the world and, market themselves accordingly. But at the end of the day, NLP itself, if you do the steps, if you use it, it's quite easy to get good results, but they think it's themselves. So you get a whole bunch of people that have different attitudes towards it. Some people who dismiss it and go, oh, it's pseudoscience and stuff. You get people to say that about psychology. You get people to say that about all sorts of stuff. At the end of the day, I work based upon what I've seen work in my real life. What's worked for me, what's worked with my clients when they come back and I see the results. That's what I based upon, my real life experience. I've done the academia. I spent 8 years in university studying psychology. I've got a master's in applied psychology. So I've gotten an awful lot of insight into the academic process, the research methods, not to mention reading thousands of books at this stage. I'm a bookaholic. So for me, all of that means that I'm comfortable and confident enough to make good decisions from my perspective about what I think. But if someone has a different point of view, I don't think that they're wrong. I just think that they think differently. And, you can get results with people using humanistic forms of therapy. You can get results with people using analysis, even though I wouldn't see it as the most useful form. So I think people spend too much time arguing about what's right or what's wrong.
Yeah.
I just think take whatever from a field, learn what you can, use it the best you can. If it works for you, great. And if it don't, move on.
Have you got any simple techniques that you could share now that maybe a listener could try out?
Well, really, there's so many. It really depends. Well, no. If you give me a particular issue or problem,
okay. So a person is scared of dogs because they got bit when they were 6.
Okay.
And they want to overcome that.
Okay. So obviously, if you're trying to overcome a trauma to do with dogs, you want to be able to see someone who's practicing. But at a very simple level, if I simplify it and stuff, and I'm not suggesting someone's going to listen to a 1-minute explanation of a technique and go, oh, now I'm no longer afraid of dogs. But what I will say is this. It's not the dog that scares you, it's your belief set about the dog. So it's that memory that you have. So you create an image or a movie in your mind about every time you see dogs, you imagine them doing the same thing as that dog did before. Yeah. So what you need to do is change the movie or change the way you see the movie, not necessarily completely and totally change everything that you know about dogs.
Yeah.
The reality is that every time we have a perception about something or we create an idea about something, that idea deletes information, distorts information, and generalizes information. So there's a lot you're not thinking about when you're thinking about that dog. You're only thinking of one special dog. But if you look at all the different types of dogs, like if you think about a poodle, are you going to be just as scared of a poodle as you are about the same type of dog that bit you? And when you realize there's a discrepancy there, you notice, well, you won't be that scared of a poodle because a poodle looks like a totally different type of dog. So once you categorize them differently, automatically you realize, well, there's different types of dogs, just like there's different types of humans. If you see a serial killer and he has a gun and he's pointing in your direction, then that's a good time to be scared. If you see a dog that has sharp teeth in an unfamiliar setting that's off the leash, that is running at you and he's a guard dog, then you should be running. You should have a fear. Fear will save you in that context. So the first step is to decide, is it useful to be scared at this moment? Because sometimes literally it helps you survive. So once you get over that, if you're walking past a dog and the dog barks, but you're in a context where the dog's on a leash, or you're in a context where, you know, it's your friend's dog and they're safe or they're harmless or they're just excited, then the ability you have is your ability to be able to take the image of whatever trauma you went through, imagine it smaller, imagine it black and white, imagine it moving at a really slow pace, or imagine it in reverse. So see yourself at the end of the experience and run backwards the experience. So you see everything backwards. And by doing this a number of times, what you're doing is you're changing the patterning in your brain of how you remember that experience.
Yeah.
Because once you remember something backwards, your brain does the exact opposite to what it normally does. And therefore the neurons, if you consider it, neurons that fire together, wire together. So typically your brain is used to firing neurons that go A to B to C to D. When you start to go D to C to B to A, your brain starts going D to C, D to C, D to C, D to C. So as soon as you start to go to the end, that each time you start to try to go from A to B, instantly you go more likely B to A, because your brain repatterns it in that opposite way. Yeah. So just a very simple example. I mean, people go, oh, you know, that one where, well, the reality is it's just, it requires a little bit more time and blah, 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 blah.
I tried it out about 18 months ago and it worked for me. And a situation I had. So I definitely worked for me, and I kept trying it out, kept doing a different image, rewind, fast forward, took it from color, made it black and white.
Great.
But it does take you time to do it. You
have
to
it's like everything. You know, if you want to get fit, you can't just do one bench press.
Tell me about wanting to be outside your comfort zone a lot. So, and kind of pushing yourself to want to do new things and kind of challenge yourself.
For me, I think it's part of who I am. I crave challenge. You know, if someone asked me before, why do I do what I do? And they expected me to say, because I want to make a difference to people. Now, I do want to make a difference to people, but that's not my number one motivator. My number one motivator would probably be challenge. It's I want to be pushed. I want to be challenged and tested. I like the idea of being outside of what I'm comfortable with, because when I'm comfortable with it, I know I can do it. As soon as I get to the point I know I can do it, I want to move on to the next thing, because as much as it's good for my ego to do something that I'm good at, I like to challenge. If I'm interested in something and I want to get good at something, there's nothing better than challenging me and knowing that I'm not doing as well as I could be. So again, going back to the TED Talk, that was so far outside of my comfort zone. I required so much energy, but the stakes were so high, because you don't want to humiliate yourself and have a video online of you completely embarrassing yourself. And so by raising the stakes on myself, by putting myself under pressure, that gave me a real lift, because it forced to bring out the best of me. One of the best ways to get the best out of yourself is to challenge yourself more and more and more. Make things deliberately difficult. And I think sometimes the harder things are, the more it forces you to bring out the best. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, brilliant marketing expert, genius in many ways of the whole social media area. He talks about the fact that he believes that because he grew up poor and he was an immigrant from Eastern Europe and he came to the States when he was young and, you know, it was a tough life. He says that was a huge advantage, and he feels sorry for the millennials that grow up with a silver spoon, because he says they didn't get the benefit of having to become tough as a result of the challenges. So for me, I crave challenge because I think it makes me grow stronger than the average person might do.
So tell us about how getting your books out, even though you don't feel not going to be perfect, but they're good enough to get out. Also doing the screenplays, starting short movies, and not being constrained by other people's perceptions or perfectionisms or opinions. And it kind of goes against what you were saying before about being so sensitive when you were younger. You kind of turned full circle in that way, didn't we?
Well, in a way, yes. In a way, no. I mean, if I'm to say, like, one of the things that still I'm working on is caring too much about what people think. However, that being said, here's my philosophy of the whole getting results. So when I write a book, my philosophy on it is, and my set of beliefs about it are, this book is going to be a decent book that gives information and tries to get information across to people, makes a difference to people. It's not going to be Hemingway. It's not going to be Tolstoy. It's not going to be a brilliantly genius written book that positions me as the best writer in the history of writers. And it doesn't need to be. And that's the key part. It doesn't need to be. So when I decide to write a book, I'm not writing it to be perfect. So when I write a first chapter, I can always go over and re-edit it. But if I stop myself every time I start to write, then I'm stop, start, and I'm never really going to finish it. Instead, what I want to do is I want to get it out. Like, there's a great film called Finding Forrester. Sean Connery was in it, about this reclusive author that takes this young guy under his wing, and he gives him a piece of advice about writing, and he says, write the first draft with your heart and the second with your head. In other words, get it out and then look over it and start to chip away at it and then release it. But your job is not to be perfect. Your job is not to write a masterpiece. Your job is to get it out. Masterpieces should be the 10th book you've written. I want to write books, and I want to make every book better than the last one. And the only way to do that is to practice. So I see that as happening. I also believe that there's so many people talking about stuff and not doing it. So I've written 6 books. I have 2 almost finished, and I'm working on another couple. But the reality is that that's not me being great at writing. That's me being really good at disciplining myself to write. Like, so I write because my idea is I want to write, not because I have to make things perfect. Same with the short films. I got a love of writing and screenplays and stuff like that, and acting and stuff. And I figured this is something I want to do. This is something I want to get better at. It's a challenge for me. And so I decided I was going to write. And then I wrote I think 8 in 2 years, and produced and everything, and done and dusted. And the reason I was able to do that is because, again, my idea was I want to be able to practice as much as I can. And I know none of them are going to be perfect. I'm going to look at myself in each of them and the writing and go, oh shit, I could have made it better. But I could have made it better is a learning. That motivates me to work harder. So sometimes you have to not take what people think as being a permanent thing. It's like, let's say the TED Talk for you. If you go into that thinking to yourself, am I good enough to write the TED Talk? It's irrelevant whether you're good enough or not, because it's not about being good enough. It's about you doing the best you can and keep improving each time. So this is one of the steps on your journey. It's just one of the steps. It's not the be all and end all, the climax, the end credits, the TED Talk where Mark stands in front of it, and if he doesn't do the perfect job, then he just is not meant for this, and he should go back and stop doing fucking podcasts. Instead, this is a step on your journey to making a real impact to more people. Just like the podcasts are a step, the TEDx is a step. None of them have to be perfect. They just have to be you stepping out of your comfort zone, saying, fuck it, doing it. And some people will go, well, that was shit, in their head. Some people will go, that was great, Mark, but not believe it. Some people will go, that was great, and do believe it. And some people will say, that made a huge difference to me. And you have to just be able to do and go for it and just go. Even if people don't like it, it's fine, because this is a step on the journey to make it an impact. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And the likelihood is that you can't control whether people like it or not. All you can do is give it 100% and then take the feedback and then make it better every time. Never seeing that as being the big climactic talk. And if you don't, then it's fucking disaster.
And you can apply that, what you've just said, which is beautiful, to life in general. Right? Yeah, which is just brilliant.
Go the distance.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. I swear to God, man, every single time it's go the distance. Life is not, people go, well, life is great. Life is not fucking great all the time. Life is a pain in the hole a lot of the time. Life is tough, it's hard, but that's okay, because hardness produces challenge, and challenge helps you to grow. And you have amazing moments, maybe amazing moments with kids, amazing moments in love, amazing moments with your family, with your friends, those nights out, the sunny days that you get where you go out and you have a drink at a beer garden with a friend, or the holidays that you take on, and the memories you create, and the places, being the amazing movies that touch you, or the amazing performances or dances or whatever the hell you're into. That's what makes life rich. It makes life worthwhile. The issue is that it doesn't mean life is going to be easy or be fair. It's not. But this is the life we have, so we've got to do the best we can with it. And if you can see the hardest times as being the things that cultivate or construct you or build you or make you tougher, then you can get to the point where you can appreciate the good moments.
So my last question, and my most important question, if you had a coffee or a herbal tea or a water with your 18-year-old self, what advice would you offer them?
I give them a lot of advice, but the main concepts of what I would be saying is, one is about caring what people think. And I would try to communicate to them, look, here's the deal. No matter what you do, there are going to be people that, for their own reasons, see the worst in you. There's going to be people that misunderstand you. There's going to be people that have issues or have problems with you. So no matter what you do, you can be the nicest person in the world. You can be okay. You can be anything. And people will still do that. You can't allow yourself to live your life according to other people's expectations. The second thing I'd say is you need to not be afraid to be yourself and let people see your own personality, let that shine, let people see the real you, and not try to be just another voice that's like everybody else. Another thing I'd say is try to read as much as you can. I mean, to be fair, I read copious amounts, but I would say you know, with all the reading you're doing, maybe if I was to go back, I'd say read a bit more, you know, fiction and literature and that kind of thing, because that's the one thing that I feel I would like to have done when I was younger. So I'd say, you know, start reading a bit more of this author and this author and this author, go back to Joyce and Wilde and stuff. So I'd probably do that. But I'd also probably be trying to put across the message that says you can't allow yourself to expect that you're going to be, because of what you do, because you feel that you're special or talented, whatever bullshit everyone believes of themselves, or most people do. You can't expect someone to come along to you and pick you up and go, oh, you're so talented as a speaker or communicator. Oh, I want to, you know, make you a star. It's not sports. You're not being recruited for the NFL or being recruited for, you know, playing for Glasgow Celtic, the best team in the world. You're not getting that opportunity. Instead, doing what you do, you have to learn the business. You have to learn the marketing. So I would have learned marketing a lot younger. So it would have been, it's about taking advantage and going in and going, right, you got to market yourself. It's all down to you. Okay. Nobody is going to give you a hand up when you work for yourself. Pretty much most people are competing with you. So if it's in business, you learn business, learn to market yourself, learn to promote yourself. And then the very last thing I'd say is that just remember, no matter what happens, you'll get through it. And when you get through, when you go to the other side, you'll be tougher as a result. You will get through it, no matter what happens. The hardest times, the heartbreaks, relationship breakups, the darkest times that you've had, you'll get through it. And on the other side, you'll be stronger as a result. Your life won't be better when you lose someone, but you'll always remember and you'll have those memories and no one can take that away, but you'll be a stronger person as a result. That's what I'd probably say. And then my younger self would probably go, all right, I got it. And then do whatever the fuck he wants anyway. Knowing me.
You offer some fantastic advice there. You probably offered more advice in that one moment than all my guests put together. So that was really, really good. Owen, thank you very much.
Thanks to me and Mark.
Really,
Pleasure,
really
mate.
Appreciate
Best
it.
of luck with everything, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. To subscribe to the podcast, you can go into www.wikn.co. That's www.wikn.co. Also, you can subscribe via iTunes, your Android podcast of choice. Hope you really enjoyed Owen's talk today. See you soon. Bye.